Welcome
you.
to Ask Julie Anything. We are here tonight with just Julie. So tonight is a great night to ask your product questions, your questions about your animals directly to Julie. She'll be able to answer those for you. If you could, hopefully, please put your questions in the Q&A for us. It can be difficult to track them down in the chat. Now let's just see who all's here. Can everybody hear us okay?
I'm going to pull you guys closer to me so that I can actually cross my leg.
Hi, Donna. Oh, is that going to hurt even more? Julie got kicked. She's in a little pain. Hi, Tracy.
I'm in big pain, not little pain.
Okay, I'm going to hand it over to you, Julie, and I will let you know when we have a few questions, okay?
Okay. Hi, everybody. So I hope people have questions because last week I kind of didn't say anything because I was excited to have Rita Hogan on, and I'm definitely not an herbalist. So I was like, okay, I'm not answering any questions because I want her to have the stage and be able to answer as many herbal questions as I could have. So hopefully, Kaylin, is there there is 2 questions. So I did, yes, Kaylin's right. I just literally got out of bed and made my way down here. I'm trying to have a cup of tea. I got kicked by a very, very big horse today. So my thigh, the front of my thigh, looks like a tree trunk. It wasn't his fault. It was totally my fault. I was rushing and he was getting something done to him. And anyways, it was my fault totally. He didn't mean to kick me. He was pulling his foot away from the farrier and I was in between the wall and his foot and the farrier. So if I go ow, it's just because if I go to lean on something and I forget it's my leg and I lean on my leg. So anyways, don't worry if I'm being a big baby wussy saying ow, just ignore me. And I'm eating chocolate, so chocolate and tea to try to get me geared up. All right, so questions. There's 5 now. So Kaylin, do you want to start asking?
Yeah, absolutely. So Becky says, hi, Julie. Thanks so much for having these sessions. My dogs are on several of your products with fantastic results. But I have a question regarding some of the dogs at the sanctuary I volunteer at.
Okay.
These dogs seem to voraciously eat the green grass of spring and then proceed to vomit large amounts of grass. I don't know if they're missing something in their diets or if it's just to soothe their stomachs. I'm looking for some advice from you as to what we could start them on to help quell the grass vomiting. My first instinct was to try Phytosynergy and Gut Soothe, but curious as to what makes them run to eat this grass. Also, one of the dogs that does this runs a borderline low thyroid, which standard vets have not treated as of yet. Is there something that might help support her thyroid function other than traditional thyroid replacements, or is Phytosynergy a good start? Thank you so much.
Okay, that's a long one. I'm trying to remember everything that was in there. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of different reasons why dogs eat grass and then throw up. Lots and lots of times they eat grass and they don't throw up, and that's probably very natural because they're just trying to get minerals and all kinds of good stuff. My dogs eat grass like they're cattle sometimes when I take them out in the field, but they don't throw it up after. Sometimes they do. So I would say, and if they're shelter animals, I have a million questions, right? Like, are they on processed food? Are they, if they're in the shelter, were they just vaccinated? Are they stressed? There's a million different things. But 3 things that I would be thinking of is Phytosynergy is really good no matter what, because you're getting superoxide dismutase, you're getting essential fatty acids, you're getting minerals and vitamins and whole food nutrition. So that's really good. Sometimes I think about healthy gut. If they're throwing up in general, I would not say healthy gut, because then it would be gut soothe. So if they're pukey dogs and they're having GI issues, I would not say use healthy gut. I would be saying definitely use gut soothe. If they are trying to eat grass to help their digestive process, like to help trying to get themselves some enzymes or some real food, you could try healthy gut, which is our digestive enzyme and probiotic. But if any of these dogs are highly stressed and they've had a lot of drugs and they've had a lot of vaccines and they've had poor quality food and antibiotics, I would say Phytosynergy and Phytosflora, because Phytosflora has fulvic and humic acid, and that is incredible for drawing toxins out of the body. So if the dogs are trying to like somehow detoxify themselves, it's really amazing for pulling out toxins. Almost works like a clay, but it has minerals, like amazing minerals in it. So it's not really clay. It's a lot safer and a lot easier to digest, and it gives a lot more, like I said, minerals. And then it's got the 14 strains of love bugs, and then we've got the 2 added strains of the canine. Henry, my dog's going to sorry. The canine probiotic. So that's twofold, because the canine probiotic now we can actually make health claims on, and those health claims, which is incredible. I think it's the only probiotic right now in the world that we can make health claims, because it's been tested. And the claims are for immune modulation, which is phenomenally important with every single dog, whether they're healthy or not healthy. It's also, we can make some claims on it helping to tighten the junctions of the mucosal lining, the acid, the balance of acidity in the gut, so that we know that it withstands the acidity of the gut if they are having some acid reflux. So I think I would try the Phytosflora, and if they're not vomiting, unless they're eating grass. If they're only vomiting when they're eating grass, I would do the Phytosynergy and the Phytosflora, because then you're getting pre and probiotics. You're helping a detoxification process that might be a situation if they're shelter dogs, and then you're giving the Phytosynergy, which is a whole food nutrition. So that's what I would start with. And if they've been vaccinated, I would be giving everybody anti-vaccinosis, like just routinely for sure. And you can keep us posted on it, right? Like you can try that and then email questions at Adore Beast, or email Kaylin, and we can help you along with that for sure. Because it might help some, and then some still might be doing it. So those ones, you can give us more information, so then I could fine tune it and go, well, those ones probably should be on gut soothe, or those ones maybe should be on a digestive enzyme.
Okay, question 2. Maggie Roth, hi Maggie. She wants to know, what's your guys' take on roughage in dog food?
Can you ask her if it's raw dog food? Is she talking about roughage?
I'm guessing that it would be raw dog food.
Okay,
yes,
so
she says.
Okay, so roughage is, you're probably referring to indigestible fiber or undigestible fiber, and I think it's important. There's a lot of school of thought that a lot of people don't think it's important. I think it is important, because I believe that we haven't recognized, well, first of all, we have to see what it is. You don't want roughage with a lot of like sugars and like carrots and things like that. You want low glycemic index roughage, so more greens, things like that. And it's important because if we're feeding kefir, if we're feeding sauerkraut, if we're doing anything fermented, or we're adding probiotics that don't have a prebiotic in it, it's important for them to have the bacteria in the gut to have indigestible fiber. So in the wild, they would be getting it out of the gut of their prey, so it would be pre-digested. So you would be wanting to be sure that it was really ground down, so that it's not like too big, so that it's, you want to, like I said, you want to mimic how they would get indigestible fiber in the wild, which is the gut of their prey when they eat a bird, a groundhog, whatever, a deer, and they're eating the digested greens and stuff, or greens, seeds, grains, whatever whatever that prey has been eating. So yes, I do think it's important. My philosophy doesn't have to be a large amount, but it should be in there if you're feeding things that have probiotics in it. And the other thing that I want to say is that the only time indigestible fiber is not useful or not good is if you think that your dog has something called SIBO. And SIBO is small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, and it can show up in a lot of really weird ways. A lot of times diarrhea, chronic diarrhea. Any dogs that have pancreatic insufficiency often have SIBO. And SIBO is when bacteria, the good bacteria, so all the bacteria that we're giving in probiotics and stuff like that, that should be in the large intestine, and it somehow seeps up into the small intestine, and even the good bacteria shouldn't be living in the small intestine. And then because it overgrows bacteria, and that's why it's called small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. And it flourishes on indigestible fiber, or as you call it, roughage. So you would want to make sure that your dog wasn't presenting a lot of vomiting symptoms, a lot of chronic watery stool symptoms. You'd want to be sure that you're not dealing with SIBO if you're feeding a lot of indigestible fiber. But other than that, yeah, I think it's important to have a small percentage, like maybe 5% of their diet be that.
Okay. I have, that actually answers, Tracy had a question about SIBO. So you perfectly answered two with one, Julie.
What was her question?
She just wanted you to talk about SIBO to address it.
Okay, well, let's see if she has anything else, because
yeah,
that was just a real quick little thing.
Yeah, what would you best recommend for SIBO to assist with it?
With SIBO, you want to be looking, we're coming out with a soil-based probiotic. Soil-based probiotics are good for SIBO because they tend to be the bacteria that is what you would have in the small intestine, like the bacteria that you would want. Having a diet very low in indigestible fiber, or undigestible fiber, and you have to be careful with bone with SIBO, because the body can also look at bone as a fiber, like the cartilage and things like that. So if you're sure your dog has it, you can have them tested for it with a oxygen test or a breath test, and they can, or you can get I think it's cobalt folate is a blood test to see if they have SIBO, if you're having chronic problems. I always recommend any dogs with pancreatic insufficiency have those tests, because I think that unless they're on the enzyme and they're completely fine, but that's rare. A lot of times they have breakout diarrhea that then gets fixed when you put them on antibiotics. If that's the case, that is antibiotic diarrhea, like diarrhea that is fixed by alleviated by antibiotics. That is often a symptom of SIBO. So, and it goes hand in hand with the pancreatic insufficiency. So I would definitely, any dogs that have that are getting breakthrough diarrhea, I would be doing that test on them for sure.
Okay, wonderful. Please don't mind background noise. My dogs are wrestling. Um, so I have Ro Roanne Del Greco. I hope I said your name right. Has a question. If you feed a food rich in pre and probiotics like answers and
Yep.
want to add phytophthora, could you maybe use just half a dose? And I've actually gotten this question before, Julie. People
Yep.
wondering if you feed a food like answers, is it too much to give them our product?
No, because I mean, Billy and I are friends, and we talk a lot about the different types of probiotics that are in his food. Like when they ferment, the fermentation process creates all different kinds of bacteria strains, which are incredible, and species and stuff. But it won't create the canine flora, right? The canine bacteria. That's impossible. So and I've put a much smaller amount in phytophthora, doesn't have nearly the colony forming units as love bugs does because of the canine pre and probiotic or canine strain, species and strain. And so if you were to do phytophthora and answers, it's fine. There's no concern, because even any concern that might be would be the possibility that there would be too much bacteria and not enough prebiotic, right? And we make sure that there's a lot of prebiotic, enough prebiotic in phytophthora to balance that. So I definitely wouldn't worry about phytophthora and answers at all. I have a lot of people, and if you said, like, I'm talking about like the full amount, you know, there's the tests that were completed, all the lab studies, all the studies for phytophthora for that canine species. We are using a little bit higher amount colony forming units than what was tested, but we're kind of right there, because what's so cool about that is that the reason that we personally use a lot of like a high colony, like 30 billion colony forming units in our love bugs and in our probiotics, is because there has been no studies showing if human probiotics, which is every other probiotic, including soil-based probiotics on the market, there's never been a study to see if it stays viable in a dog's pH, right? Their acidity. So people that are formulating, that are trying to be very, very conscientious that colony setup of the probiotics, we're using high amounts, like 30 billion. And we're using a lot of diverse, like 14 strains and things like that. But we don't have to do that with phytophthora. We don't have to like overpopulate or give a whole bunch, because we know for sure that it's viable, and we know for sure that many colony forming units in vitro studies, which is in the lab, and in live studies, stay viable throughout the whole process, the digestive process. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I did also have a question about the canine species probiotics, if you wouldn't mind addressing it today, and I haven't answered it yet because I wanted to talk to you.
Okay.
How long do they stay viable? The woman was wondering, if I give them every other day, are they like transient, or are they, how long would it be? 2 days, 3 days, 24 hours?
Well, it depends on I would say it depends on your diet. It depends on the health of the microbiome that's in the gut. It depends on the overgrowth of bad bacteria in the gut. Because how you kind of want to think about probiotics is that they maintain the symbiotic community. So when there is sort of pathogens in the gut that we are concerned about, so let's say E. coli, salmonella, clostridium, anything like that, we want the more friendly probiotic species and strains to be in there, keeping those negative ones or those more pathogenic ones contained, right? So that's the difference between antibiotics and using probiotics, is that antibiotics go in, kill the pathogens and kill the good bacteria, they kill everything. But that's even more harmful, right? Then it's almost equally as harmful as giving the as a pathogenic bacteria. So when you look at how often should you be giving it every other day, I think that really depends on how long you've been giving it. Does your dog have symptomatology that might be indicative of an unhealthy microbiome? And are you confident that your microbiome, the ecosystem in the gut, is very diverse, and that the good guys are being able to play nice with the bad guys, and that there's more good guys than there is bad guys, but they're all playing nice in the gut. So if you're confident that's happening, the easiest thing to do is to go to every second day and really watch the stool, watch the energy, watch the amount that they're drinking, watch their hair coat, watch their eyes if they're bright, watch their personality. And if you see a shift, that would instantly tell you that that microbiome is still not either as diverse, or there isn't enough happy players. There's more unhappy players in the gut.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. I have a question from Carolyn McAfee, and she says, "Howdy. Thank you for this chat.
Welcome.
I have a customer using the Yeasty Beast protocol, and I was wondering if you could go through the stages and what kind of results to see while going through the protocol stages. Can you use Yeasty Beast twice in a row? And if so, how long in between?"
Well, I'm going to go backwards. You can definitely use it twice in a row if you need it. So how you would know that you need it would be that there's still symptoms. And I'm always been about less is more. It's why our containers are so small, why we don't have, fillers, why I go start small, work up. It is real. Yeasty Beast is it's a product or a protocol that people have to pay attention to their animals. So if you give it and you feel like the dog is getting worse, then there's two things that are happening. Either it doesn't have yeast and it's got more leaky gut, and you're not addressing the gut symptoms, you're addressing yeast symptoms, or you're killing the yeast too fast. The dog has a massive amount of yeast, and the protocol is actually killing it too fast, so you're getting a yeast die-off, and it can look the same as the yeast getting worse or the skin getting worse. So I always say, if you have an animal that's really bad and you know it's yeast, but they're really bad, so the dog's got really bad yeast, it's stinky, it's red, it's raw, it's itchy, it's miserable, I always tell people to start off with a quarter of the dose of the powder, and slowly work up. Maybe start 5 days later, see what they're like, add another quarter, and wait for another 5 days, to a week, add another quarter, so that you're working up to the full dose, maybe over the course of a month. And then that way you're not going to get a die-off as fast. And if you do see a die-off, so let's say you go from a quarter to half the dose, right? And then all of a sudden they start getting stinkier and itchier. Then you're like, okay, I gotta back off. But at least you haven't gone, here's a whole full dose, and it goes in and it starts to just blow away the yeast, and then you get a die-off. It's, for me, if you're worried and you have a sensitive dog, or you have a really old dog that's really suffering with yeast and has been suffering with yeast and has been on ketoconazole and that sort of ketoconazole antibiotic, topical yeast shampoos, that whole scenario. If you have that, I would just it never hurts to just start off slow if it's been a long-term chronic problem with lots of drugs on board. I always go nice and gentle and then start to increase as the dog's getting healthier. I always try and put them on phytosynergy, because I feed phytosynergy and liver tonic, liver tonic's good, but because what that does is the superoxide dismutase helps to scavenge the free radicals and the inflammation of the yeast dying off. You're sort of supporting their metabolism, yeah. And I never worry about doing a full dose of phyto. I've never seen an aggravation to phytosynergy. It's because it's a food. So I hope
can you address what the exactly how specifically the homeopathic portion of the disease protocol works?
Yeah, so the homeopathic portion is helps to detox, but what it does is they're homeopathic remedies to help with the itch until the yeast is dead, because they suffer so much that when they're so crazy itchy, what happens is that the cortisol levels go up, and they get so stressed that their immune system is compromised, which with yeast, when their immune system is compromised, the yeast can, it's a parasite, right? So it thrives on an immune system that's not very strong to begin with. It's like Lyme disease and all that stuff. So anytime you have like a protozoa or a mite or a parasite or a parasitic kind of bacteria, you wanna be sure that the body's immune system is really, really strong while you're doing it. You don't want to overdo it, and I've seen that with the leaky gut, right? So you go in and you're giving all of this amazing stuff, and you're boosting their immune system like crazy, and then the dog actually has a ton of yeast, and then because the immune system gets boosted like crazy, it starts to kill the yeast too fast as well. So and you always have, if you have yeast, you're going to have to do the leaky gut protocol no matter what, because the yeast just trashes the mucosal lining of the gut. It inflames it so much, and it causes so much damage that you're going to want to do a leaky gut protocol once the yeast is gone.
Okay, thank you. We get that asked a lot, so that's fantastic.
Yeah.
We were able to talk about that today. Jody, hi Jody. She has a question. She says, "Hi there.
Hi.
One of my friends just got a puppy, 6 weeks old. Don't get me started. She wanted some advice from me about vaccine protocol as well as flea and tick prevention. Since I don't vaccinate, I titer and adopted all my dogs as adults. I don't know what to tell her. As well, I have advised her against ivermectin, but I don't know if my protocol is safe for puppies. What would you advise for these two issues?"
Well, I don't like doing anything until something's checked. So I wouldn't, if you're going to, from a worming perspective, at our clinic, we never routinely wormed. We would only worm if we did fecals and saw the fecal count was really high, and then we would use the appropriate, the most gentle, especially for puppies, wormer possible. So I would definitely find out what kind of worms puppy has, if it has any worms at all, because sometimes they don't, but often they do. But sometimes they don't. Definitely don't worm vaccinate at the same time. I see that all the time, and it's like you're giving a vaccine and you're giving an anti-parasitic at the same time. It's like you're giving a double whammy at the same time. So that was a real no-no at our clinic. From a vaccine protocol, we never vaccinated anything under 10 weeks. So, and the reason for that is that when the puppies are born and they nurse, they get something called colostrum. And in the colostrum is the antibodies to keep the mother's maternal antibodies to keep them safe against diseases like viruses. So when you vaccinate at the same time the maternal antibodies are still prevalent and strong, they don't start to decline till around 9 or 10 weeks. They don't start to reduce in the puppy's body. So what happens when you vaccinate at the same time that the puppy has strong maternal antibodies, you're right away starting off on the wrong foot, because the body's going, okay, we have all these maternal antibodies. How did this parvovirus enter our body when we have protection? So Jean Dodds has a good one. She has a good puppy protocol vaccine. But what we would do is we would try and do for people that wanted to vaccinate. We had people that didn't vaccinate, and we had people that absolutely wanted to vaccinate. So we would vaccinate between 9 and 10 weeks of age, and depending on, how quickly, you have to look at where people live. Like, do they live near areas where they've had parvo outbreaks? Are they living near areas where they've had distemper outbreaks? If that's the case, then you might want to do them at 9 weeks. But we used to give independent monovalent vaccines. So we would give a parvo vaccine, and then we would wait 2 weeks to even a month, and then we would give the distemper vaccine, and then we would wait like about a month, and then we would titer them to see if they actually built immunity from the first vaccine. And this is a long conversation. And the reason that we did that is because, we routinely vaccinate. We don't routinely check. So if we were to vaccinate a puppy and then we just go, okay, well, the association recommends vaccinating them at, 8 and then 10 and then 12, or 8 and then 10 and then 16, or, 9, whatever that clinic has adopted. No one has ever checked in between them, or even checked to see if they even need their 1-year booster. So we've actually checked dogs. That's so interesting. We've checked dogs that have been routinely had their full puppy vaccines as a puppy, and some of them even more, because they were vaccinated at 6 weeks, and then vets say, oh, well, 6 weeks is too young. So instead of just getting your 2 more, now you have to actually have 3 more. So then they wind up getting 4 plus their 1 at 1 year. So we've had titer tested animals that we know where people have had them since they were puppies, and they're 4 years old, and they've had their routine vaccines every single year, and they have 0 titer. They have no titers, which would say that they probably wouldn't have titers. They probably won't build, for whatever reason, an antibody titer. And there are some animals like that. Then we've seen puppies that have had a vaccine at 10, 12 weeks, nothing after that. We've tested them at a year, and they have adequate antibodies. It's kind of like all over the place. I think that slow or herd immunization part is a very big part. So if the puppy starts to go around in slow little spurts to get the virus in very, very minute, small herd environment, they will slowly build, and they'll get really strong antibodies. If they are kept super separated and they're vaccinated and then vaccinated again and then vaccinated again, sometimes that immunization hasn't been even as strong as the other ones. I know vaccinations are very, I could sit and talk about vaccines and immunization for a long time. It's something I'm really interested in. But in general, at our clinic, we always did less is more. So we would do a single monovalent, but unfortunately you can't get them anymore. So you have to get, I think the most minimum one you can get is parvo distemper now. So we would do them, like I said, between 9 and 10 weeks. Then we would do them again in a month. And then we would check their antibodies in a month's time. For some people, we had some people that were very, very conscientious. We would even get them to, they didn't care how many times we checked their antibodies, and they would rather see something not get sick and just check and check and check. So some people would vaccinate them at 10 weeks. We would check them again, we would check them in a month, see if they maintained any antibodies or if they had enough antibodies. And if they did, they wouldn't vaccinate them, but they would recheck them again in 6 months and see. And if we needed to revaccinate them, which often we didn't. So it really depends on the person and how dedicated they are to checking, and how dedicated they are to keeping the puppy safe for the first little bit, like picking them up if they're going near dogs to not taking them to massive dog parks where you know that there's owners that aren't very conscientious, that kind of stuff. So just, be super mindful. I wouldn't take them to puppy classes definitely no puppy classes until they were vaccinated. Let them play with adult dogs and get them socialized with adult dogs. I always say that sometimes that they should have been with their puppy, their siblings as puppies to learn puppy stuff. But I always laugh at puppy classes because I always think that puppies teach puppies bad habits. So I always feel like adult dogs that are well-rounded, adult dogs teach puppies much better than puppies teach puppies, or people teach puppies. So that was a long answer to a vaccine question. That's what we did.
Yes, but very, very much information. Thank you. Heather says, "Hi, Julie. Thank you for doing this."
Welcome.
What are your thoughts on why a 7-year-old cat would have chronic constipation and anal gland problems for over a year? She's raw fed for many years. I did animal biome and she lacks bacterial diversity, so I'm doing the transplant pills and inulin. She also struggles with food allergies and can't have lamb, fish, or any poultry, or the hair on her ears will fall out.
Oof. Well, there's a couple reasons why they can get chronic constipation. Depends on what the poop looks like. If the poop is really hard and white, often processed feline raw food can have too much bone in it, and they can get constipated from too much bone. That's one thing. You have to make sure that the bone ratio is really good. The next one would be the anal glands can, like, the anal glands should be expressed every single time they defecate, right? So if she's not defecating on a regular basis, then the anal gland's not being massaged every time she defecates, which should be every day. So that could be an anal gland thing, but anal glands are very, very tied into allergies. So when an animal has allergies, a lot of times they have inflammation in their anus, and that inflammation can make the anal gland sphincter, so the hole, too tight, so the anal gland material can't get expressed, and then they start going in and having it expressed. And if people are too rough on the anal gland, they can damage the anal gland opening, and then it can scar, so that then the opening is even smaller, and then you have this really this terrible thing. But what I would actually do, as I don't know if you guys remember, but maybe Kaylin, somebody can put it in the Q&A, or in the chat, I should say, is Sarah Griffith. She was on here talking about horses. She's one of the most amazing cat feline nutritionists I've ever known. She's amazing. She did so much work with big cats, like cougars and things like that. She's great with food, and she does nutrition consults with cats. So I would contact her. But when I hear, like, I my heart goes out to you, because I have a little cat that suffers with something very similar. And I rescued her. She was hit by a car 12 years ago now, when I was driving in Ontario. My mom was having surgery, and I was there in the middle of the night, and someone ran right over in the middle of the road and just kept going. And I stopped, and she was so damaged that I just sort of held her for her to die. And my sister's like, Julie, you've got all the mummy's emergency homeopathic remedies in the car from my mom's surgery. So I just started giving her aconite and arnica, thinking that it would help her with the fear and the pain, and then that she would just die. And about 25 minutes later, she started sort of sitting up, and you couldn't see her eyes because she had a massive brain injury. And anyways, make a long story short, I took her back, and I feel like she's got from that, she brought her all the way back to BC, and she couldn't walk, and she had all kinds of brain issues for a while, but she wound up being amazing and actually being pregnant and having 3 incredible kittens, and 2 that I still have. One was killed by an owl. He was really badly cross-eyed, and anyways, doesn't matter. So she suffers with hyperesthesia, it's called, which is they're not allergies. She itches like she's got allergies, and she loses the hair on her ears, and she can have a strip down her back that looks all pimply and allergy-like. And she even has sort of, she can get infections in her toenails and stuff like that. And she can get constipated and get anal gland issues. But I think that she's got more of a pituitary axis thymus injury in her brain. And I've also seen that with animals that are neutered and spayed young. They just don't have enough cortisol. And if I could find the name, maybe whoever's listening, I'm just going on my phone. I'm not being rude, but let me just really fast look at something. Sorry, because I think it's an interesting for everybody to hear that has problems with their dogs and their cats, that all the vets are scratching their heads. Hang on. It's called Pleshner syndrome, Pleschner. And he was a doctor. He was a vet. I think he just died not that long ago. And it's a syndrome where they're not producing enough cortisol. And it's a really interesting thing. If you Google it and read it, it's a really interesting article for animals that everybody's tried everything, right? Like they've tried diet and homeopathy and acupuncture and all the modalities, and the animals are still suffering. It's a very interesting article. I would try the nutritionists first that I mentioned, and then if not, and Karen Becker, Dr. Mercola. Karen has a good hormonal support. I would look at hormone stuff with your cat for sure. I wish so bad. Oh, you know what you can get? You can also get it from my colleague, Andrea Ring. I think we can put that definitely in the chat. Andrea has, we used to sell our spay and neuter protocol, and then we weren't allowed to do it anymore. But she sells it. So you can look, you can also contact Andrea and tell her about your cat. And then maybe I'm getting all stiff with my legs, sorry. You can contact Andrea and she could send you the feline, I think she said feline spay protocol, and you could try that with her as well and see if that would help. That was a long one, but that's close to my heart because it sounds just like my cat.
Okay, well, thank you so much. We have a lot of questions here. Um, so we'll try and get to them as
Okay.
best as we can. But
Okay.
there was one here that I thought was really great, and it speaks to this time of year. So Samsung, and I'm sorry you posted your name way below, but I can't find that now. I have a 6-pound dog who has episodes of hemorrhagic gastroenteritis. I just started her. Yes, thank you. I just started her on Phytos Flora. Should she have any category of food to start the process? She does fairly well on sweet potato and freeze-dried raw. Maybe should I give her gut soothe at the same time? Thank you.
Yes, I would use gut soothe, but hemorrhagic gastroenteritis can be autoimmune. So before you do that, I just want to make sure that if it's immune mediated hemorrhagic gastritis or hemorrhagic gastroenteritis, it's life threatening, right? Like they can die from it. So I'm not trying to scare you, but I would be really, really looking at things that are immune modulators like the Phytos Flora, right? Because it does have that immune modulating effect, and so does larch have immune modulating effect. And this is an interesting Q&A tonight, but I would also talk to my friend Andrea because she takes cases and she's an incredible homeopath. And we have worked with that. Andrea was apprenticed with me for many years at my clinic. And we had lots of protocols for that, and really we had a lot of success with it. We were able to work with animals with that and really help them, including her animal who almost died twice from it. So and we figured out it was stress induced, and as soon as she dealt with her stress, what was causing chronic stress in her house, and then gave the dog a remedy because of that, it was like night and day difference. It was incredible. So if you want to really nip that in the butt, that's a nasty thing for them to have, especially if they really crash. So I'd be looking at stress levels because it's very stress induced, just like inflammatory bowel disease. I would be looking at stress. I'd be looking at diet, definitely Phytos Flora, and phytosynergy. Phytosynergy, they're doing studies on people with inflammatory bowel disease and intestinal permeability and supporting the gut and the gut lining. So I would be trying Phytos Flora, Phytosynergy, and contacting Andrea.
Oh, sorry, I was talking and I had my mute on. So sorry about that. I had a great shampoo question here from Kelly because it's really difficult to find a shampoo, but I know what you're going to say. I think maybe. I have a good shampoo. I have tried dozens of shampoos, including 4-legger, several formulations, and everything makes my dog itch. The only thing that doesn't make her itch is Dawn, but I know it's toxic and don't want to use it.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. All right. So what that's telling me, everything makes her itch. I mean, this is definitely not even a diagnosis, but the interesting thing when you say that Dawn doesn't make her itch, it's telling me that what's probably happened is that you've stripped her skin of all of its natural microbiome. So her skin will have the same different, but an animal's skin and our skin is very similar to our gut. And our skin has really, 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 really important bacteria. And every time we bathe and we use any kind of shampoos or any kind of soaps, chances are we're stripping the body of really important bacteria and oils and things like that. And even if it's the most natural thing on the planet, it still does that. He's Henry, he's only ever had one bath his whole life, and he's 6. And that's because he got sprayed by a skunk. But I mean, he gets into horse poo and cow poo and everything. And I'm lucky because he's a wire-haired, like wiry dog, and things kind of just fall off of him. But I had a Dane Mastiff cross, and I never bathed her. I don't think she ever had a bath, except again when she got sprayed by a skunk. So I'm not a big bath person with animals. And if you do, we can do, Kaylin, I don't know if you were going to talk about like the topical kefir mask. So depending on why you're bathing her, if she's stinky, then it usually means that she has an imbalance. If her skin smells, if she smells doggy, that's coming from the inside out. That's not from the outside. So no matter what you wash her with, you're not going to get rid of that smell for any longer than 24 hours because it's an imbalance. So I would be doing, we talk about kefir, we talk about organic yogurt, and mixing a teaspoon of love bugs in it, and then massaging it into her, keeping her in the bathtub, letting her sit in the bathtub for as long as you can. If she starts to lick it off, it's not going to hurt her because it's yogurt and probiotics. And then just rinsing it off, or rinsing it off with a chamomile green tea, or rinsing it off with just lukewarm water, and then have a nice warm chamomile green tea mix, and you mix it all together, and then you pour it along her back, and you rinse her with that and leave it on. That really helps. That's a really nice rinse. So that's my recommendations. If you're looking at soap, Castile soap would be the kind of only type of soap I would use if I absolutely had to and I couldn't find anything else. Kaylin, is that what you thought I was going to say?
Yes, I thought you'd recommend the mask for sure. Okay, so we have a question from Jennifer. And since it's coming up on flea season, Jennifer asks, I'm currently treating my pup for yeast all over the body, and with our weather, flea season is starting. So my question is, with yeast all over the skin, is there anything I can safely use to repel fleas without hurting my pup?
Well, I mean, it's pretty harsh stuff, but I shouldn't say harsh. It's not chemicals. It is natural, but Wondercide, or Karen, I think Karen Becker has something called Spot On. That one's really good, but Wondercide and Spot On are the only two I think that I've ever seen work. But Wondercide, I know, I know that Wondercide, I've seen Wondercide work. I actually put it on a flea and it died. So it does kill and repel fleas for sure. And if you're in the US, you can get it. It's an American company. So that's what I would be recommending for that. And if it does have yeast, I don't really highly recommend a lot of probiotics internally for yeast, but if they're really suffering with their skin, you could always do the probiotic mask as well.
Okay. We've had a couple questions asking about heartworm. What would be your protocol for heartworm?
It's state and province. Like, I would be contacting a holistic vet, a true holistic vet in every single state that you're in, because it really is weather dependent, right? So it's some states the temperature is hot enough for heartworm to last all year. Some even when you get really hot weather for 2 weeks or for 2 months, I don't think it's even long enough for the larva to be able to migrate. But saying that, I would contact whatever holistic vet is in your community and talk to them, because they would probably have that state, a protocol for that state. Because like I said, it really, really changes depending on where you are, and depending even depending on the year, right? Like they'll tell you, okay, yes, we usually have this degree of weather for this length of time during these months. So maybe, you might want to use the heartworm medication in those times. But whatever you do, if you're in a state or a place that has heartworm, coenzyme Q10, keeping the heart strong, superoxide dismutase, coenzyme Q10, things like that are fish oils. And I don't love fish oils, but so long as they're really, really, really good fish oils, or krill oil that Mercola has is really good, just to keep the heart really strong.
Okay. Jennifer has one.
Hang on one second. Hold on. Oh, my dog's freaking out. Hold on.
And my dog was freaking out at the same time. Hi, everybody. Thank you so very much for your questions. Oh, I realize you can't see me. That must be weird. Thank you so much for your questions. We really appreciate everybody that comes. Hi, everybody that joins us. And there are so many absolutely wonderful questions. And we would love to get to them all, but we need to have like 4-hour sessions, Julie.
It's, I know, it's hard. My one dog's not going to stop barking, but at least she's not nearly as loud as the other one. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, yes, I scrolled. Oh, I thought this was kind of interesting. Jennifer wants to know, can I make Yeasty Beast 2 into a yogurt drop treat and store it in the fridge?
Yeasty Beast 2 in a yogurt drop treat? Is that what you just said?
Yes, Yeasty Beast 2 into a yogurt drop treat.
No, because we're not supposed to, for Yeasty Beast, we're not supposed to be doing any probiotics, right?
But on the packaging, we recommend to give it with plain yogurt.
Well, I know. I mean, it's ideally, I hear what you're saying, but if we can, I know we say that because it's such a small, like we're trying to do just such a small amount. I'm just trying to think of what else we could use if you're going to freeze it, right? Like if you're going to make it, you need to be creative. If we're going to make it, I wonder if we could do like a little green ice cube. You know what I mean?
Oh, like a chopped up veggies, blended veggies, or something like that?
Something like that. Something that would be, that you wouldn't need a lot of enzyme to break down. That's why we don't want to do it around food, like with meat, right? Because we want the enzymes to focus on killing the yeast, ingesting the yeast. I don't know. Ask her to put her email in the chat. That's it. That we'll tell her I'll think about it.
Yeah, Jennifer, if you would like to just even email questions at adoredbeast.com with that question again, and Julie's going to think on it, and we'll see what we can come up with.
Because that might be a good idea, if we can think of something that would be tasty.
Okay, and we are just about out of time, but Tamara Tokash, hi Tamara. She says, no question, but please share more about the upcoming Science of Nature.
Oh, I know. It's exciting. Okay, share more. So I guess everybody's probably seen it and gone on to the landing page and looked, right? So Science of Nature is a free, completely free event that we're putting on with everybody from Rodney Habib, Karen Becker, Ian Billinghurst, Judy Morgan, I mean, Isla Fishburne, I mean, Billy Hokeman. I like, there's just so many incredible people. But we also, which is really cool, because I was just getting a lot of sad emails that people are really stressed right now. A lot of people worrying about what are they going to do with their dogs and cats with separation anxiety when they go back to work, because people have been home with their animals and they know, and they're scared that their animals are going to have separation anxiety. And just sort of like long term for us and for our animals, long-term stress, like down the road, even once COVID's finished and everybody's, you know, trying to get back to their normal lives, the stress, the sort of like world stress and world fear really does play a part in long-term health. So we decided, I approached these guys to go, can we do an event that has a focus on stress? Would you guys be interested? I want to do a free event so then that's not stressful for anybody. And I want to do it in a way where we're giving tangible tools and we're kind of talking to people rather than standing and doing like slideshow after slideshow after slideshow, and then people get off and there's all this incredible, amazing information, but everyone's super overwhelmed. What I wanted to do was have it very interactive. So this is going to be for you guys. My whole team is going to be really like overwhelmed with this, but when you sign up for the event, you're going to be getting an email and you can ask one question and you have to choose a category. So the first one is nutrition and stress, and what kind of foods not only can we feed our dogs and our cats, but what foods can we eat? So we have a human naturopathic doctor on the panel as well. The same with the herbs and adaptogens. So we've mixed this with people and animals, because I feel like when it comes to stress and the human animal bond, what everyone's just been through, we can't separate ourselves. So we need to give, I wanted to give support to everybody that was for everybody, for the family, for dogs and cats and people. And we had so many incredible people come forward when I put it out there that we literally couldn't have everybody. So we're going to have a really awesome magazine, sort of an e-magazine right after, with all different articles about stress and tangible tools from all different vets and all different nutritionists. But that day, Rodney Habib's going to kick it off on the Friday night, and then we're going to start on the Saturday, and we're going to have interactive panels where we actually answer your questions that you are going to send to us. And yeah, it's going to be really interesting and really fun. I know, like Rodney said, there's never been one like this where it's so interactive and it's also combining people and animals. So he was super, super stoked. And the only thing we've done is we've said that if anyone does want to contribute on any level, you don't have to feel like you do. But if you do, we have a donation, a charity donation link to Rodney Habib's Pause for Change. So, you know, if you want to give $1, if you want to give $5, if you want whatever you wanted, or nothing, there's like zero attachment, no strings attached, no like massive amounts of emails coming at you after, well, now it's going to be, was free, but now it's $200 or something like that. That's not going to happen. Yeah, so I'm really, really excited, and everybody's really excited. So I hope everybody can show up, and we're going to have an incredible, we're having behaviorists, and we're having it at the end. And for those of you that got to watch Isla Fishburne, she's going to be giving us some tangible tools for our own stress, to relieve our own stress and also the stress in our animals. And then at the very, very end, we're putting something together about the environment. And in the very, very end, Isla's going to close it with a shamanic ceremony to help us all just stay together. It's called Stronger Together, and it's collaboration over competition. And I just wanted to show everybody, like kind of like the world, that, you know, people can come together, whether we're all making supplements, whether we're all, you know, these are people that you've supported us, meaning us, Mercola, Rodney, Isla, Judy Morgan, Rita Hogan. You guys have supported us. So I just said, okay, it's time for us to support you guys. And how are we going to do this the best way? And everybody was just like, we're there. Like didn't even have to ask people twice. It was incredible. I got goosebumps on my sore leg thinking about it.
All right, fantastic. And we also, for everybody that is attending or showing up, well, even afterwards, we're going to have a free publication. So it's going to be an online publication, and we have some amazing, amazing people in our community contributing to that. So, you know, anybody who isn't Dr. Jody Grunstern, sorry, not Dr. Ihor. There's so many, Dr. Josie Bug, so many are contributing to this, and you'll be able to find it after the event on our website for anybody and everybody, filled with lots of tips, lots of great ideas, lots of useful, tangible things you can take home and do.
Okay, so
that is it. Yes, Science of Nature will be recorded, and you will find that on our YouTube channel along with all of our other videos, including this one, which will be on tomorrow. So just go to YouTube and search for our channel at Adored Beast Apothecary. Okay?
Couldn't get to everybody's question. There were such good questions that were pretty in-depth ones. So
yes, they were amazing questions.
Try to get faster at this. or be longer. I think the last time I did it, everyone was like, oh yeah, we'll stay for an hour and a half. Forgot about that. I was thinking about my leg.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.